Welcome to the Wellness Dentist Podcast. Join biological and cosmetic dentist Dr. Katie Toe as she explores holistic wellness through trending ideas, real stories, and patient experiences. This podcast will inspire you to make healthy lifestyle choices and take charge of your dental wellness. And now your host, the Wellness Dentist, Dr. Katie Toe.
Welcome to the Wellness Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Toe, and today I have one of the most influential person in teaching me how to memorize and improve my brain power, Jim Kwik. Welcome to the show.
Oh, so good to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for everyone who's tuning in.
Thank you. You've been coming to a biohacking for 14 years, you said.
I've spoken at all of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And every year, people always walk out and say, I learned so much from his session.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And last year, actually, one of my biological dentists was here for the first time, and she heard of your presentations on stage. And she's like, that's the best presentation I ever heard.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Because your presentation is so practical, teaching people how to using the brain more efficiently. And then this year, you talk about fully present. And I think a lot of patients forget, they're just so focused on working on the physical and forget about the power of the brain.
Yeah. I mean, our brains are so important. So, regardless of someone's profession, if they are in dentistry, if they're in medicine, if they're, in any profession, your brain controls everything, right? It controls your mood, it controls your decisions, it controls your finances, and so much more. But your brain doesn't come with an owner's manual, and it's not always user-friendly. All piece of technology has some kind of instructions on how to use it, but our brains don't. And I don't think school did the absolute best job at preparing us for the world that we're in now, where we're overloaded with information. We have so many distractions, we're so forgetful. And then, what's that day look like? And so I like to show people simple science-based ways to be able to, and what I do is how I can be effective is really, it's not just the brain, because the brain is connected to everything, right? The brain is connected to your immune system, to your gut, to your oral health, also as well. If you have, oral hygiene is very important for mental hygiene.
That's right.
If there's inflammation here, it's going to affect systemically. If there's, your microbiome is going to affect your brain also as well. So I like this functional approach, especially in, for biological dentists, because it's treating the whole system, it's studying the whole self. And I take the same approach with brain. Like, how are you going to optimize your brain if you don't control, and influence your environment? If you don't work on your immune system, if you don't do things, regulate your nervous system, your vagus nerve, your gut, your microbiome, your sleep, your nutrition, everything plays a role. So everybody always wants to know, like, what's the magic pill is there a limitless pill to have an incredible memory? And I don't think there's a pill, but I think there are processes when you see and take into account all the different systems that come into play to your mental performance.
Yeah, I can tell you that we look at patients' saliva under the phase contrast microscope, and we can see spirochete in Alzheimer patients. And we wish that, they didn't come to us when they already have full-blown dementias or Alzheimer. We wish we can catch this 20, 30 years before the symptom even show up. But what we're noticing is people forget that they do have to exercise their brain. They exercise the muscle, they brushing the teeth, they floss, they water pick, but they don't really exercise the brain. In fact, they abuse the brain, especially with the screen these days.
And that's one of the things, because in every photos, I'm always pointing to my brain, or I have a brain on my shirt often. Yeah. It's because it's just what you see, you pay attention to. You see your clothes, you tend to pay attention to clothes. You see your skin, you take care of your skin or your hair, make sure it looks good. Or you see your teeth, right? But you don't see the thing that's in here. And it's your awareness. You see your car, you take better care of your car because it's in your awareness, but we don't see the thing that's taking care of us. And so I'm always pointing to my brain, or I have brains on my shirts, and I'm just telling people to know your brain, to trust your brain, to love your brain, and mostly to use your brain. Because it is an organ, but it responds more like a muscle. It is use it or lose it. If you are so reliant on technology to remember things for you, to think for you, and your brain isn't getting the exercise that it desires and really deserves, then it's like putting your arm in a cast. If you put your arm in a cast for a year, it wouldn't grow stronger. it wouldn't even stay the same, right? It would atrophy.
That's right.
And they call it digital dementia, like outsourcing our memory to our devices. It keeps our to-dos, it keeps your schedules, your calendars, it has all your phone numbers, right? Like how many phone numbers did you know growing up?
All of them.
All of them. We all knew all of them. How many phone numbers do you remember today?
Just my phone number.
Right. And here's the thing. And there's going to be someone you're calling like, you know, every single day for years, but you might not know their number. And not that I want to memorize 100 or 500 phone numbers, but it should be very concerning if we've lost the ability to remember one number or a PIN number or a passcode or something. Have you read a page of a book, got to the end and just forgot what you just read, right? Or something you just heard or something you were going to say or something that was said to you or someone forgetting someone's name, right? I think two of the most costly words sometimes in life are I forgot. I mean, think about the consequences of saying I forgot to do it. I forgot to bring it. I forgot what I just read. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot what was said to me. I forgot that person's name. On the other side, memory is a magnifier for anybody, right? When you can easily remember client information, product information, you know, patient information, procedures, you know, give speeches without notes, everything gets easier. And also we live in this expert economy where we're paid for this level of expertise. And it shows that, you know, we've done the work. And so I think memory can make everything better in your life, personally and professionally. But there's simple things that I would focus on when it comes to memory, right? and specifically the brain. Number one, I talk about things like a good brain diet, right? So what you eat matters, especially if you're gray matter. And we all have our favorite brain foods, and everyone's a little bio-individual. You know, some of mine are avocados for the monounsaturated fat, the blueberries I call brain berries for the antioxidants, and you can use salmon or sardines. You get your omega-3s, your DHAs, the vitamin E from like walnuts as a snack, which are great to pair with blueberries.
It looks like a brain too.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good way of remembering it also. Dark chocolate. But then also the other side though, and you know this, is there's certain foods that people consume that's not even really food. You know, the highly processed quote unquote food that could lead to more inflammation, the high sugars. I mean, think of what's happening, orally when people consume lots of sugars, and plus the glucose spikes, insulin levels, and that can be a challenge also. And so, and people could rate themselves on a scale of 0 to 10, how was their diet the past week? Second thing I would mention that I think is very important is not just what you're consuming, but what you're saying to yourself. At events like this, people come to me and say, Jim, I'm so glad you're here. I have a horrible memory. I'm just getting too old. And I always say the same thing. I would say, stop. If you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Your brain is a supercomputer, and your self-talk is a program it will run. So if you tell yourself, I'm not good at remembering people's names, you won't remember the name of the next person you meet because you programmed your supercomputer not to. And so, even if you find yourself, I would say for this, people can measure 0 to 10, how positive they're encouraging their self-talk is, because, if you find yourself saying, I don't have a great memory, just catch yourself and put a little word like yet at the end.
Yet.
Right. I'm not great at making money yet. Right. Or I'm not at my, health yet. Right. It just opens up more possibility, and the words really matter. Number 3, I would say, this is kind of obvious again, it's common sense, but not common practice. Great reminder is movement. I think it's, we live a very sedentary lifestyle. Most of us are sitting behind desks and screens, and that could be a big challenge because, again, the number one reason you have a brain is to control your body, right? As your body moves, your brain grooves. And I don't mean just going to the gym a few times a week. I mean, like how much you move throughout the day. Mm-hmm. They say sitting is the new smoking. And, I say for every 60, 90 minutes to get up and take 5 or 10 minutes and just move your body, go outside, get some fresh air, some sunlight. But the body's meant to move. When you move, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, BDNF, which is like fertilizer for neuroplasticity. When you move, you have dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and so movement. Number 4, brain nutrition. If you're not getting it just from foods, and I prefer people get it from foods, but if you're not getting that wild salmon or sardines, maybe you have to supplement with a good quality omega-3 DHA, right? If the turmeric is not part of your diet, maybe you're supplementing with curcumin, right? Or if you're not getting the vitamin E in walnuts, you can supplement with that, right? But I like food personally, but certainly in today's lifestyle and travel and what the soil doesn't have, it might make sense to be intelligent, do some kind of nutrient profile and see what you're missing, because your brain's not going to be optimal if you're low in vitamin D, or your B vitamins, right? Something that's like that. Number 5, I would say there's a number of things. A positive peer group could be very important. I think it's very important to have community. We have a podcast and good 100 million downloads, a couple million subscribers on YouTube, and we had I was interviewing someone from Harvard. He was the director of the longest running over 80 years study on longevity and health and happiness, and said yes, diet is important, exercise is important. What trumps that actually is community. It's just social connections. It's not just your neurological networks, it's your social networks, because, the people around us have a huge impact on, in terms of, like even Blue Zones, a lot of it was based on community. And purpose. So I'd remind people that. Some people could rate that 0 to 10. How positive, how strong is your peer group? Number 6, I would say, and it's turning to like a little masterclass here.
No, that's people are learning. Yes, that's the reason people are listening to podcasts.
I would say number 6 is a clean environment. I want to remind people that your external world is a reflection of your internal world.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed, like, you kind of make your bed or you clean things off on your desk or even on your computer, if everything's in the right file, you have clarity of mind. And so our environment has a huge effect. And not just that, I mean, from organization, certainly, you want to declutter your environment. You want to recondo your environment so you can recondo your mind. But you also, your environment could have, pollutants, in the air. There's neurotoxins that come off of, like, whether it's new furniture or carpeting, mattresses. There's also, the environment, lighting. Sometimes the fluorescent light are not the optimal lights. There are a lot of buildings and offices. They're less expensive, probably a reason why. But the air quality and,
like mold, like Dave talked about.
Yeah, mold, definitely.
Affecting the brain fog.
Yeah, all of that. And so, clean environment, 0 to 10. And then number 7, I would say sleep. We have to add that in no matter what. Your brain, when we're talking about a high-performing brain, how well does it perform when you have, like, you didn't get a good night's sleep? How well are you thinking? How much mental endurance do you have to make it through the day without those slumps, decision fatigue, mental fatigue, brain fog, which also, a lot of our, students come to us with brain fog. I was like, oh, it could also be not just the brain, it could be the rest of your body. That, again, that inflammation, microbiome, infection, or your environment. It could be, brain fog could be coming from the candles that you have or the spray, the perfumes, all the other scents that can potentially be, more neurotoxic. But sleep is so important because when you sleep, you consolidate short to long-term memory, right? So if you have long-term memory issues, maybe people could get an at-home sleep study, which is really easy to do.
Yeah. We prescribe it to every patient.
That's perfect. And I love how proactive you are, because, like, what if that's the one thing that's really holding people back?
Yes.
But, and nowadays you don't have to go to a clinic
anymore,
with all these wires kind of stale with all these other people. You can just do it at home.
Yes.
And the other thing, when you sleep, besides consolidating short to long-term memory, when you sleep, it's like the sewage system in your brain kicks in. You have the beta amyloid plaque that can build up to lead to brain aging challenges, right? And so that could be a big challenge. And my favorite things for sleep, and I've studied this a lot, there's a whole chapter in Limitless, in science-based. I would get direct sunlight first thing in the morning. I think it's so very important. Not through a window, because the window could filter out some of the spectrum of light. But outside, even if it's hazy or foggy, you still get the benefit. And your eyes are only part of, part of your brain that's kind of like outside your skull, and it helps to reset your circadian rhythm. So you'll have better sleep that evening if you get it first thing in the morning. Second thing I would say is you have a monitor caffeine. That's kind of obvious. I'm very sensitive with caffeine. I'm jealous of people who have like espressos at night and stuff like that. But they can stay in your system 10 hours plus. So I would definitely, for me, I can't do it past noon. And then you have an alarm clock. Most people have an alarm clock to wake up. I highly recommend, I challenge people to have an alarm clock to go to bed, meaning that the human body and the nervous system loves a rhythm, even on the weekends. And no one does this perfect. I certainly didn't, I don't know myself, but to the degree we could go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, you'll have greater levels of quality sleep over time. And so keep into a schedule. And then the final quick tips on sleep, and I'm spending time on it because it's a real lever mover. This is something we know, and maybe you're doing it or not doing it, but maybe it's a reminder to do it. Think about when we're hunter-gatherers. We would know it'd be time to sleep because the environment would tell us there'd be a decrease in 2 environmental factors. Temperature, you'll get cooler. And so generally you'll sleep better in a cooler environment. And, at this biohacking place, at conference, Beyond Conference, they have like different pads and everything else to regulate the temperature of the mattress. But now where it's so cold where you're shivering, obviously, then you're not going to sleep very well. Or you could go into one of these biohacking saunas, or you could take a hot shower. You could take an Epsom salt bath. You get the transdermal magnesium, which helps you to relax, which can be very soothing. But when you get out of that sauna or that hot shower, your core body temperature drops. And then that's a signal for you to create melatonin, which is the hormone that helps you relax. So I think that could be very useful. The other drop, not just in temperature in the environment, is that it is the decrease in light, right? But nowadays, temperature, it can be temperature controlled all through the day with modern conveniences. Light can be on all the time. What I would say, the darker, the better. And you know what the big culprit is our devices. Not only people are having sleep issues as an epidemic, maybe it's because you're on your phone. And first of all, the content is very stimulating.
Yeah.
And it's not the most relaxing nowadays. Everyone's doom scrolling and they're in their executive mind, thinking about work or thinking about politics or thinking about things that are aggravating them. So that alone could be hyperstimulating, keep you up. But also the screen itself could fool your mind into thinking it's still daylight. And then you don't produce the melatonin. So reduce the phone usage, at night if you can. That's number 7. And finally, because I like to have a 10,
Yeah.
8, I would say protect your brain. As someone who had a traumatic brain injury and I've worked with athletes and football players and people who've had head injuries and trauma there, protect your brain. Some people, wear helmets or avoid certain sports and protect your brain also because there's more and more talk about devices so close to your head,
That's
right? And who knows the long-term effects. And this is very disturbing. A lot of young teenagers who have phones, they're sleeping with their phone right underneath their pillow. Like it's like right there. I mean, what's off coming from that?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough talk about the EMF and then the radiation.
Yeah, because your brain is, it's biological, but it's electrical, right? And so there can be some challenges there potentially. So that's number 8, protect your brain. Number 9 is new learnings, and I already talked about that. Always be learning. If people have seen photos of me with Elon or Oprah or whoever if we're connected on social media, people generally ask like, hey, how do you connect? How do you bond it over books? Leaders are readers, right? People are where they are because they're avid learners, because they want to grow every single day. They want to be stronger and smarter than they were yesterday, right? And that's the only comparison they have, not other people, but to who they were before and who they could be. And I feel like, again, reading is so very important because if somebody has all that experience, they put in a book and you read the book, you have so much knowledge, but also it's great exercise for your brain. That's my favorite way to always be learning. So new learnings is number 9. And finally, number 10 key to have a limitless brain is I would say stress management. We talked about chronic stress and what it does to the brain. And if you're in chronic stress, if you're in fight or flight, you don't have access to your executive function, your creativity, your ability to solve problems really well. Plus, stress is a contributing factor to all ailments, right? It impairs everything. Just like lack of sleep will impair every physiological function, so will stress. And I feel like we're inundated with stress, and it's like it's too much information, too many obligations. People are saying yes to too much, financial stress, global stress, family stress. And that's why I think it's important to have mechanisms to be able to, because I think also on top of all of this is this loving yourself, meaning looking in the mirror and loving the reflection, looking back, that's been through so much, but is still standing, having grace, forgiveness of yourself, letting go of things and going through the work and the process. And I'm not saying it's easy at all, but I think the treasure we seek is often hidden in the work that we're avoiding,
Wow,
and so those are 10 things. And I feel like everyone wants to know what's the one thing, but if you do all these things and don't sleep, then how's your brain? You do all this stuff and eat junk food all the time, how's your brain? You do all this stuff and you're just negative and beating yourself up every day. You do all this stuff, healthy exercise and sleep and everything, but you're stressed out of your mind. What's the benefit? Or if you do all this stuff and you just lack the nutrients, to be able to process, and your brain is in anxiety, or not nurtured properly, then you're not going to get the best. So, there's not one thing, there's many things, and nobody gets this perfect, but, I think we're all on this journey. I think we're all on this journey wherever we are, age or stage. I'm in my 50s. I'm very concerned. I have two little ones, and longevity is something I'm very passionate about, specifically cognitive span, right? I spent a lot of time in nursing homes because I lost my grandparents very early and helping them polish off their memories. And I also learn a lot too. I like learning. I think I can learn something from everybody because they've had different life experience, the life they live or lessons they're teaching. But I also here's a lot of regrets. It's like, hey, maybe they didn't pursue a relationship because of what people would think about them, or they chose a career path because it was imposed on them by parents, or whatever it happens to be, where some kind of regret. And I just want to remind everybody that when we're taking our final breaths, like none of other people's opinions or expectations are going to matter. Those are the things that are limiting us. What's going to matter really is just, the things that matter, like how we laughed, how we learned, how we loved, how we lived, right? And I feel like, we have one life. Why are we running towards the things that are lighting us up more? Like we're on fire, because I feel like the biggest biohack would be purpose. And I don't think purpose is necessarily something that's divinely, given to you. I feel like we could decide, what gives us our life meaning in terms, and I feel like that sense of meaning will help us get through, those harder times. Because the truth is, what no coach really wants to talk about is change can be scary. Like doing something new can be scary because it's the unknown, right? And our amygdala is firing off and saber-tooth tiger when it's, they're not really threatening, but we could perceive it as starting that business, starting that conversation, that relationship, that practice, whatever. The other thing is like growth could be hard, but nothing is as scary and hard as being stuck somewhere you don't belong, and I respect people, even if they're watching this, because they're learning, they're growing, they're on the journey.
They're investing in themselves. And I hear a lot of questions about overwhelm. They said, Dr. Katie, I come to you, I already seen 26 other professional, and I'm so overwhelmed because they all give me a long list of things to do. And you so generously give us the 10 things to do for the brain. What did you say to the patient, to the person that say, I'm so overwhelmed? Where do they start first?
Yeah. So the best place to start is somewhere. This is the thing that you're going to do, right? Knowledge by itself is not power. Knowledge is potential power. It only comes power when we use it. I honestly think that some people spend way too much time just learning something and not applying it. I have a general rule: for every hour I spend listening to a podcast or an audiobook or reading a book or that I have to spend an equal hour implementing it.
I like that.
And so what I would be doing throughout the day is just choose one thing. One thing, start small, because that's how you get momentum. The key for motivation, when you're talking about the dopamine systems, it's not, the problem sometimes in society is we're getting cheap dopamine, right? Like scrolling is dopamine, no effort. Binge watching Netflix, dopamine. Like going to a website, eating junk food, no effort is required, and you get that hit. And then you wonder why you're not motivated, because you're all spent to do the things you actually need to be motivated for. The key to dopamine is it's not that feeling that you have to act. It's you act and then you get the feeling. Dopamine is a molecule of joy, right? The molecule of motivation. So what I would say to anybody is just pick one thing.
Pick one thing.
One thing. That's why I had people go 0 to 10 to see which one is the area will be the highest lever, focus on that. And how you find your one thing is this. You ask yourself, what is the tiniest action I could take right now that will give me progress towards this goal? What is the tiniest? So like say you were doing really well in those areas, but you weren't moving and exercising because you're just working so hard. And then you can't get yourself in the gym. That's too big. So maybe the tiniest action is putting on your running shoes. Like maybe it was the new learnings. Jim says read 30 minutes a day. And that's I can't get myself to do that. Where do you start? Start by opening up a book. Reading one line in a book.
Yeah.
Because you're not just going to read one line. Like flossing, right? Like if you want to talk about things beyond brushing, there's, like whether it's oil pulling, right? Or it's a tongue scraping, or any of these things, or flossing, like, you have kids, how do you get your kids to floss? Get them to floss one tooth.
Yeah.
Right? Because little by little becomes a lot. So what I would challenge everybody with the overwhelm is forget the noise. Look what your outcome is. What's the biggest lever or first domino that'll make everything easier? And what is the tiniest action you could take to make progress in that area? So if it's exercise, get outside, right? Really simple. If it's reading, read one line. If it's flossing, floss one tooth, right? I can't make it any simpler than that.
I love that.
And I would challenge people, because ultimately people have to make the choice, right? It's a decision people make every single day. But, one question you could ask yourself is, think about that ideal version of yourself that's patiently waiting. What would that person want you to do? Like, look back, project in the future. You are the person, you have the life that you dream of. What would that person want you to do right now?
Yeah. If people want to learn more, because I know you have so many courses and millions of people have been taking these courses, where would they find these courses?
I'm hard not to find. You search my name anywhere. YouTube, we have a great subscriber base of a couple million people. We put our podcast there, the extended version. People enjoy that. It's all free. And probably social media. People could take a screenshot of this and tag us both, and so we get to see it. I'll repost, some, and maybe gift. We have a brand new book. Yeah, I'm so proud of this. It's called Limitless Daily. You know what? This is the biggest changer ever. So I did research over the past year, and I started, we have very young kids, and I started journaling every day about what I want them as an adult to read to help them get through difficult times.
For your children, right? Yes.
Yeah, just one a day, but it's written to them as if they were an adult, right? And I base it all on psychology and neuroscience, so it's validated, and it's things that I do. So the biggest challenge that we all face, whether it's frustration, it's overwhelm, it's procrastination. You wake up in the morning and you don't have energy. You're overwhelmed with all you need to do. You feel imposter syndrome. You're scared to take that next step. Whatever, we literally have something for every phase and cycle of season that we could go through. And then I give you the psychology or the neuroscience behind this idea. And I give you one little thing you could do to be able to win that day. And then a new identity statement to be able to change the way you look at yourself. In just 3 minutes, you read it. It could triple your productivity and your performance, and certainly your peace that day.
Every single day.
Yeah, and this is when you want to read it. This is the key. And whether you get the book or not, this will help. When you wake up in the morning, there's something called sleep inertia. And sleep inertia is a very small window where you're transitioning from that sleep state to that awake state, where certain things are coming online. Your alertness, your attention, your working memory hasn't been overloaded yet, right? And so it's a prime, they call it attentional priming. And that's a key window where you will get a disproportionate result from the mental input you put in at that time. Because what's going to happen is it's like an algorithm. You ever notice, like on social media, at least today, you're not seeing as many like the people you're following. You're seeing more of the posts from people you don't follow for content that you've engaged with.
That's true.
Right? And your brain has that same algorithm. So in that first few minutes of the day, instead of reaching for your phone, because what happens when you reach for your phone? You're using that prime time, disproportionate return on distraction and doom, and people will want your time and everything else, and you're reacting, fighting fires. And what that does, that time in the morning, it has an incredible effect on how you frame situations later that day, on your mood later that day, how you perceive what happens that day, and also what you focus on later that day. So you want to do this attentional priming during that sleep inertia, where you have strong input. And it could be gratitude. Yeah. It could be like focus on the 3 things that will make today a win. Or it could be Limitless Daily. People could see it at limitlessdaily.com. There's some great bonuses there. And we're doing a 366 challenge. So people could do it with us for the whole year. Because everybody is on the same page, literally focus on the
And
one
when that
thing.
challenge started?
So when the book comes out.
Oh, nice. 366. I think we pre-ordered on Amazon already.
I think everyone's doing that, and they'll get some bonuses that'll be coming. And
thank you so much. Exciting. I can't wait. I'm going to get my team, because we have a book club at work, and we're going to get everyone on that 366 challenge.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much. I know how busy you are, and appreciate you generously give us the gift. And so, dentists, if you listen to this, you got to train for yourself and then talk to your patient and your team about exercise the brain and train the brain, improve the memory and the human connection.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So thank you again for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for listening today. Wellness starts in your mouth and includes your entire life. When you understand that, the whole game changes. Come learn more at thewellnessdentist.com. We see you in the next episode. And remember, there is always a reason to smile.